Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we welcome another author.
That's 3 in 2 days. I feel like I'm in college again.
I know, it does. Well, we have this assigned reading that we have to get to. Wow, we have these deadlines. This author is also a well-known Western Mass newspaperman, former radio talk show host, and television host, G. Michael Dobbs. Mike Dobbs has a new memoir out called What They Didn't Teach You in Journalism School, the memoir of an Ink Stained Wretch. He'll join us later in the show.
And the 4th of July is the unofficial kickoff to blueberry picking season in Western Mass. We'll help you find your thrill on the Blueberry Hill at Birdhaven Farm in Southampton.
It's my blue heaven.
There's too many bees. It's hard to do all of those words.
But first...
Many of the times that we've had arts organizations on the show to talk about their various projects and endeavors in the community, there's a couple of organizations whose names keep appearing whenever they want to acknowledge the folks that help make those projects happen.
And one of those organizations is Mass Humanities, a nonprofit foundation originally based in Northampton, creates opportunities for the people of Massachusetts to transform and build a more equitable Commonwealth through the humanities. Since its founding in 1974, the organization has provided millions of dollars to support thousands of humanities projects across the Commonwealth.
Mass Humanities is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and part of those celebrations is a move from its previous home in Northampton to the recently renovated Armory building on Race Street in Holyoke.
Here to talk with us about their mission, their move, and more is Executive Director of Mass Humanities, Brian Boyles. Brian has forayed into radio, writing, and previously was director of the Louisiana Humanities Center, while also dedicating 10 years to the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. Joins us to talk about all of Mass Humanities' milestones and movements.
We're also joined by Aaron Vega, Director of Planning and Economic Development for the City of Holyoke and former state representative who also serves on the board for both Mass Humanities and on the board for NEPM, full disclosure.
Yeah, lots of full disclosure here. Oh, the humanities. We are conflicted up the wazoo with this conversation because Mass Humanities also supports a bunch of projects that have funneled through here NEPM as well.
Yeah.
But we like to say, we're trying to focus on the good things that people are doing, so inevitably we're going to cross-pollinate. It's a little bit of an incestuous humanities world that we live in, maybe particularly here in Western Mass.
More like rising tide lifts all boats.
Okay, yeah.
We call them collaborations, not conflicts.
Okay, I like that. Brian, for those who aren't as familiar with the work of Mass Humanities, what are some of the things that they may have experienced that they know about that Mass Humanities has been able to support?
For the last few weeks, thousands of people have been experiencing the Reading Frederick Douglass Together program, which you guys know well and have always been big supporters of. These are the public readings of Douglass's 4th of July speech that have grown so much in the last couple of years. So from 15 events in 2019 to about 60 around the state this year is a credit to our team, and I think it's just this way that people engage with humanities and in solidarity all over Massachusetts. Our Clemente course in the humanities, which takes place in the Valley, in Springfield and Holyoke, and in 4 other cities around the state, is an adult ed course. More than anything, it's a community building course. It's a way for people to engage with texts, with the canon, but also add to it, also build connections with their own folks, also take their education journey by the hand and advance their own work. Our work with the Smithsonian has really been huge in the Valley. I think you're familiar, Monty, with the Smithsonian Museum on Main Street projects that we did in Turner's Falls.
Yes, that also NEPM was a part of.
The transparency in this room is amazing. And I think is a humanities quality in a lot of ways. And then, the main thing is we're a funder. So as you said, a lot of times it's our logo or our name that you might hear about. In the last couple of years, the Expand Massachusetts Stories initiative, which we most recently celebrated in Holyoke, has really been us getting behind the reckoning with history at a local level and really supporting people who are brave enough to do this deeper dive into their own history. And that could be anything from the legacy of enslavement to recognizing the indigenous neighbors we have today, to a variety of different communities who weren't always part of public history. And I think what we're proud of and what we see is that these great intersections going on where people who are interested in doc films, oral history, community-led exhibitions are getting together to really talk about how to change the story of Massachusetts. And that, I think, for us has been an achievement over the last couple of years and something we're real proud of.
What makes storytelling, especially community-based storytelling, such a good community builder?
It's a gateway to civic engagement. It's not always easy to figure out how to learn your town. And it's really hard to learn your town if when you walk into the library or the museum, you don't see anyone that looks like you on the wall. Storytelling gives people the keys to the car of public memory. It says, You have a voice here. Now, how they do that, totally up to them. Translation is involved. Community organizing is involved. Lots of skills that we didn't always name as part of the humanities are there. But when you say storytelling, and I'm a librarian, I get it. When you say storytelling and I really serve immigrant communities, I get it. And I think that part has been amazing to see. And it gets people onto this first step of saying, you know what, I can walk all the way into town hall and have a voice because I've had a voice at these other public spaces in this town.
We're speaking with Brian Boyles, who's the executive director of Mass Humanities, who's recently moved from Northampton to Holyoke, as well as Holyoke's own son, Aaron Vega, who is not only the state rep for Holyoke for many years, but is currently the director of planning and economic development for the city. Speaking of economic development, how does Mass Humanities get its money? It is not a state organization. There are other, the Mass Cultural Council, which I think people may often confuse because it's got Mass in the title. It's a lot of the mission is the same, funding these organizations that are doing good things. But how does Mass Humanities get its money to send out to everyone?
This transparency thing is going a long
way.
way.
No kidding. They're right to it.
Mass Humanities is an underwriter of NEPM. Aaron Vega is a board member of NEPM and Mass Humanities. Yes.
So Mass Humanities is one of 54 state humanities councils. So there's one of us in every state. There's also one of us in Puerto Rico. There's one of us in Guam. And we receive funding from the federal government through the National Endowment for the Humanities to meet the needs of our state. We're the biggest partner of Mass Cultural Council, and we take all that funding and put it out towards grant making. And then we have private supporters, either through our governor's awards, through our partnership with the Bar Foundation, that again, we turn around and put out into communities.
And our partnership with Mass Cultural Council as well.
Yeah, talk about that relationship. How does that work, Aaron?
Well, I think we're trying to see what they're doing as well as how we can support what they're doing and vice versa. And I think having both Mike Bobbitt and Brian come in almost at the same time has been a really great fostering of that relationship. And he was at our 50th event celebration in Holyoke. And so we want to support each other. And I think when we look at how arts can enliven a community, how it can share a story, I look at the divisions in our communities now, and I think that once people understand that the same story in my case, the same story of the Irish immigrants is the same story as the Puerto Rican migrants. And once they have those connections, there's a realization that there's, as we all know, there's more in common than we have different. And so I think that's Mass Cultural Council's mission in many ways, and it's definitely the Mass Humanities mission.
Talk about the decision to move your offices from Northampton to Holyoke and what that means with your mission moving forward.
I think for me, it's a couple of things. I think first, it's a win for Western Mass because this is a regional impact, right? So keeping them here, and we love Northampton, right? So it's nothing against Northampton, but I think having them in Holyoke speaks volumes to their mission, right? I mean, we are a city that represents America's history. We have a strong story. If it wasn't for the Industrial Revolution, we would not exist. We were a city built on immigrants and migrants, the labor movement story, the rich Irish cultural story, and now, of course, the Puerto Rican cultural story, and having a strong Clemente course in Holyoke for years. So it just makes sense because these are the communities that we're trying to uplift. And we want to make those partnerships. And those partnerships start right off the bat with the Care Center and Nueva Esperanza and LACE and those organizations. It also starts with our collaboration with the building owners, Dennis and Marco Zargiaga, who want to create a space between the Cubit and the Armor Building that is a space to gather. They have the armor yards there. They have offices there. They have the co-work spaces there. They're creating a new story. And I think that's important for Mass Humanities to be part of not just where we came from, but what we're doing now. So I think those collaborations, those stories are happening now, and they're part of the next chapter for Holyoke and for Western Mass.
There's a sort of renaissance on Race Street, and there has been for a couple of decades now.
There's still divisions in our community, right? And Race Street's an interesting example of that, where sometimes there's a little division between race and Main Street. Between the new people that are coming and working at these great organizations, these new businesses like Clean Crop. So it's these young engineer hipsters, right, that are really, they love Holyoke, mixed with people that have been there for decades that, aren't the same social economic class. But we're trying to create a place where they can meet. And I think that's the intersection that Race Street can represent. And so I say a lot that we don't build new cities in America anymore. There's not enough space, but we're rebuilding cities. And I think as we try to rebuild Holyoke, the stories, the humanities, the arts, the culture, and the history is all part of that. And I think that as we look to the future of what Holyoke wants to be, looking at green infrastructure and carbon reduction businesses, but also a community that involves the arts. I mean, that's why we brought Beyond Walls in there to do those murals. That's why we cultivated local muralists. That's why we're having young people get more engaged through Lighthouse School and other ways to take ownership of that community. But it's important to understand the history of that community. And I think that's key. Like if you come into South Holyoke, it's very Latino now. But South Holyoke was the French-Canadian enclave for decades. It was called Tiger Town, right? I mean, so there's a history there that needs to be told and needs to be understood.
Coming up, we'll hear about Mass Humanities' work beyond Western Mass, the stories from the Clemente Writing Project, and where you can participate in reading Frederick Douglass together this 4th of July weekend.
And later in the show, author and journalist Mike Dobbs on his new book, What They Didn't Teach You in Journalism School, the memoir of an ink stained wretch. And we'll go blueberry picking at Birdhaven Farm in Southampton.
And some of them will even make it home with us. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We are continuing our conversation with Brian Boyles, the Executive Director of Mass Humanities, and with Mass Humanities board member Aaron Vega.
Are you covering more than just Western Mass with Mass Humanities? And we're just lucky to keep you here?
Absolutely.
Because all the projects that I know that you do are all based here. But are you supporting things in other parts of the state too? Brian Boyles, Executive Director of Mass Humanities?
We're a statewide organization, so our opportunity and also our challenge is we sort of need to be everywhere, and then sometimes you're not anywhere when you're that way.
Right.
And I think moving to Holyoke is a way for us to put roots down to help people see Holyoke as a place to come to. You know, we brought 50 different organizations to Holyoke last week from all around the state because we have Expand Massachusetts Stories grantees in all those places. One, I just want to get them together, but two, I want them to learn what we're learning about Holyoke. And I think for us, to be able to be in a city that is going through the changes it's going through, that has the histories complex and as glorious as they are to learn, is a way for us to really understand how does storytelling work hit the ground. You know, it's one thing for us to fund something in Lawrence or in Brockton. It's another thing for us to be neighbors with the people that are doing that storytelling. And I think it'll help us be better in Lawrence and in Brockton when we're looking at opportunities, because we'll know what it means to live in a city that's trying to craft a narrative that maybe is different than the narrative that it inherited. So for us, I think it's always exciting. We go many different places, and I think we have a small team, but we are known in Worcester pretty well. We're known in New Bedford pretty well. We're never the people doing the work on the ground by design. Right? It's much more of a community-driven funding operation that we have. The opportunity in Holyoke is, as Aaron said, there's all these other organizations that we've been learning from already as a funder, but I think to find ways to connect with them, be part of the conversation, and especially in this first year, just listen to what's going on and try to offer the support that we have been able to offer around the state.
And I can say as a board member, it's definitely statewide. I've got the privilege of reviewing the equity track for the Expanded Massachusetts Stories, and now I'm going to be reviewing those, and they're from all over. And just by reading those applications, I'm learning so much, right? The Chinese business infrastructure of old Boston, what's going on in Lawrence. I mean, I'm learning so much on the LGBTQ community. I mean, it's just like, it's so much richness out there that I'm not aware of. And there's similar stories to Lawrence, Brockton, Holyoke, but we are definitely statewide.
How do the people applying for grants affect the programming that you decide to do through Mass Humanities itself? Do other people's projects from the community shift your perspective on what your organization should be doing?
I'll give a great example, and it's a Holyoke example. So Wisteria Hearst, and then this is another NEPM connection because our friend Erica Slocum is really central to it. Wisteria Hearst decided to look into its archives, 5-6 years ago to find where Black Holyoke lived. We funded that. They decided to do an exhibition around that, and we funded that. And that exhibition brought people in who hadn't been in that building before, right? So there were African-American residents of Holyoke or who had moved out of Holyoke coming together and seeing themselves on the wall of this place because stages of that work had happened. And that cycle is really what sparked the Expand Massachusetts Stories initiative. And it happened in Worcester with the LGBTQ plus population there. They decided to do something similar at Worcester Historical. But for us, it was like, if we can sustain this kind of cracking open the archive, the presenting of the work, the collection of oral history, then you can have moments like we saw in Wisteria Hearst where people are coming together. And I remember this distinctly from like the first time we met Erica and she presented to our board. There was a photo of two women embracing in the hallway of Wisteria Hearst. And I remember the room, everybody said, this is it. This is what we want to do. And I thought, then that's a different way of working. Our goal is not simply to codify the canon. Our goal is to have people in that room reconnecting with each other. And I think that's how we try to respond. It's like we see things like that, and we saw it in Holyoke, and it shifted the way we thought about the humanities and the work that we do.
That's Brian Boyles, the executive director of Mass Humanities, who have moved from Northampton to Holyoke. We've also been joined by Aaron Vega, who works as director of planning and economic development for the city of Holyoke, but sits on the board of Mass Humanities as well as the board of NEPM. Before we let you go, you have a project coming out shortly. We are looking at the book right now, Clementino's Voices from the Clemente Writing Project.
And the Clemente Project is just such a cool learning initiative. A friend of the show, Usman Power Green, often teaches at the one at MLK services, and just hearing about it and meeting people who have been through it, it's such a cool thing.
But if people aren't familiar with it, what is this project all about?
It relates to the question you just asked. 5 years ago, we were going to graduations for the Clemente course. So each of the 6 cities holds graduations, and you have people get up to get their diploma, and they're earning 6 college credits for free through that course. And whether it's at MLK or it's in Pace in New Bedford, it's at the Care Center in Holyoke, they stand up and say, I overcame houselessness because of James Baldwin. Frederick Douglass helped me become a better parent. I beat addiction through Plato. I never heard anyone say that. And while we were sitting in an audience and it was great, the spark was, how do we get more people to hear this? And how do we provide more for the folks who have just dedicated 110 hours of their lives, working mothers, senior citizens, to the humanities? How do we get them another opportunity? So we started doing these writing projects. Usman's been part of that. Gene Occasion's been part of that, to have them write their own narratives, about what they've experienced in Clemente, about what their lives have been like, and present those as anthologies. This is the 3rd one we've done. It's the first one published with UMass Press. We're going to do publication events all around the state to celebrate it, and we want to get it in front of not just people who love what we do, people that are grassroots organizers, but I'd say, and you'll see this when you read the book, that's a significant piece of literature. If you want to know what people have to go through in Massachusetts, but what they have to go through in Haiti, what they have to go through in Puerto Rico, that book gets it. And I think it's rare, and this is all the credit is due to the people that wrote it, it's rare that we really hear from people up against those challenges directly. We're not translating it. This is really how they felt, and they did it as writers. It's not an oral history project. It's poets. It's people writing essays, and as you can tell, we're really proud about it, and we'll start to talk more about it, I think, later this month.
Everybody in this room kind of understands what humanities are, what they do, how broad that aspect of this field is, in no small part because we're a small arts and culture show. Both of us have degrees in essentially humanities and arts. But what do people misunderstand or not necessarily understand about what the humanities actually covers in Massachusetts? When people mention like STEM, it's pretty easy to have people understand. Like technology is technology, science is science, and math numbers. But like humanities covers a lot of ground that people don't necessarily understand. What would you like people to understand more about what the humanities actually addresses in the way that you approach programming for the state of Massachusetts?
Aaron Vega, board member of Mass Humanities.
Sorry.
That's a good.
That's the hard question I always get, so I'm giving it to you.
What is humanities really? It's like,
And I think it's almost easier to say what's not humanities.
Right.
I think that's the piece. But you could go to an arts funding organization to say, I want funding to paint a mural. Okay, great. We're going to say, but why is that mural? Where's the community engagement? What's the meaning of that mural? And how are we going to use that mural to tell a story? What story does it already tell, and what story is it going to tell? So when people come to it, what are they going to react to? What are they going to get from it? I think that's the full plate of humanities. It's not just the one drop. It's what's that impact, that ripple impact. What's the importance of young people who are in the LGBTQ plus community? Why is it important for them to know the history, to know the struggles? Why is it important from people who live in Holyoke or Springfield or in Massachusetts that are from Puerto Rico that were born here, don't understand the migration, how they came here through being farm workers, right? And what are they going to take from that? So I think it's not just a project. It's what's the impact and how does it bring a community together? And I really think it's really important, especially today, to educate young people, and young people, quote unquote, right? I mean, that could be in our 30s and 40s. We still need education. Like,
Thank God.
I'd like to go through the Clemente course, right? I mean, it's that would be great.
Me too.
So I think it's that. It's the sustainability of that story. It's the sustainability of the art. It's the sustainability of why the history matters.
Brian Boyles, we started this conversation talking about how one of the things that Mass Humanities supports is the reading of Frederick Douglass together, the legendary speech, What to the Slave is the 4th of July. Tomorrow is the 4th of July. Are there events happening locally that if people want to hear reading Frederick Douglass together, they could check this out through the generous funding of Mass Humanities?
MassHumanities.org has the full list. There are 2 events in Springfield, one today and one tomorrow. There's one in Amherst tomorrow, and there's one in Plainfield tomorrow. There are, I think, 15 over the next couple of days. So the answer is yes. And I think that the beautiful thing is it's grown so much that no one in the state lives 20 miles away from a Douglass reading. And that's a testament to all the people who decided that they wanted to stand up and actually talk about this stuff. And I think that's the beauty of where the humanities are today.
And it's a testament to Mass Humanities and the work that you have been doing. Recently moved from your offices in Northampton to Holyoke. We've been speaking with the director of Mass Humanities, Brian Boyles, as well as Holyoke's own Aaron Vega, Director of Planning and Economic Development for the City of Holyoke, board member of Mass Humanities, and continuing the full disclosure, board member of NEPM, who is supported by Mass Humanities in several projects. Thank you so much. Congratulations on your 50th anniversary and your move from Northampton to Holyoke.
And thanks for funding like a good 2/3 of the fun people that we talk to.
Thanks for having them on.
Exactly. Maybe we need to do a whole Mass Humanities funded show. That could be something. So.
That would be like a week. I kid you not.
Thank you both for all you do, too.
Yesterday I was born.
You can check out our conversation with the folks who read the Frederick Douglass speech last year by going to NEPM.org and looking for the episode, What Then is Spouse to the Lake House? And we'll include a link to where you can find a reading near you in the show notes.
Later in the show, author and journalist Mike Dobbs, who's been covering the news in Western Mass for decades. He's got a new memoir out called What They Didn't Teach You in Journalism School, the memoir of an Ink Stained Wretch.
But up next, the birds love it, the bees love it, even educated we love it. It's blueberries, and we'll take you to Birdhaven Blueberry Farm in Southampton.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
And eat all the blueberries.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering co-op advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
I had a question for you, Monty.
Yeah.
About berries and music. We got the cranberries.
Right.
We got Strawberry Fields Forever.
Uh-huh.
Do we have songs about blueberries that I'm just...
I found my thrill
On Blueberry Hill.
Time for a local hero spotlight with Jacob Nelson from CISA, the local hero, folks. And what's your name?
Emily Endris.
And what's your name?
Liam Endris.
This is Birdhaven Farm.
Birdhaven Farm.
Put a bird on it!
What do you grow here that makes it a haven for birds?
Well, number one, it's blueberries.
And it is blueberry season, and the birds are in heaven in Blue Haven here.
I see a couple of them in the netting, just like, hey.
Yeah, they're hanging out. We wish they weren't, but they are.
You have an extensive amount of netting, and yet the birds still get in there.
It's true.
Yeah,
I'd like for it not to be true, but it's true. But hey, I'll say they get in and they do manage to get out. So for all of you concerned about the birds, they're pretty happy there.
Even if they got in, they've got like an almost limitless supply of food. So even if they lived the entirety of the rest of their life.
We hit the buffet!
Yeah, right. I'm gonna go here to eat and die. How long have you been at this farm, Emily?
I think this is our 7th season here at the farm. The previous owners started about 40 years ago. They planted all these blueberry bushes themselves, and we took over, I guess, 7 years ago, and we're trying to diversify a little bit. Maybe you can see we've just planted almost 800 raspberry bushes last year that survived the terrible weather of last summer and are really ready to go. And we've got a small orchard of Asian pears and peaches, and we're working on the cherries and apples. So we're really trying to make a go of it here at Birdhaven. Yeah.
Nice.
How far back are the trees that you've planted? Because this is all what we're looking at from coming out of the mystical woods to your farm.
Woods, yes.
Is all bushes, it looks like.
Oh, yeah, I can show you. We can go take a little tour.
Yeah, let's take a little tour. Jacob, you were saying that you heard a story about the original farm owners and why they called it this.
Yeah, just that the first year that they had planted blueberry bushes here, a good chunk of the harvest got just eaten by birds. And apparently they just threw in the towel and were like, well, I guess this is a bird haven. And well, they didn't throw in the towel on the farm, but they accepted that that might be an appropriate name.
You have to pay your tithe to the land before you can properly start producing.
Yeah.
That's what I have decided my last year's garden was. That was my tithe to the land.
Well, you can't really escape that while farming. You're farming in nature if you're going to farm outside, and the birds got to take their piece. But luckily there's plenty of berries for us humans to eat too. We're walking past the bushes right now and they are loaded. This is a good year, Emily.
This is a great year, actually. We were really worried after last year. You know, we had that early frost that killed every blueberry that we had out there, unfortunately, and then all that flooding didn't really help. So we were really worried the bushes were going to be pretty damaged, and did a lot of pruning and crossed our fingers, and things are really looking good this year. We're really happy to be open again.
I had heard about the frost with the peaches, but I didn't know it was that bad for blueberries.
Oh, it was bad. We didn't even have anything, not even for ourselves. So, yeah, it was kind of a bummer.
Which is rough if blueberries was your only game, but you are blueberries / hardscape landscaping and stonework?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I see a pile of shale
Yes,
rock.
you do. Yes. Yeah, Andrew, my husband, co-owns this landscaping business with the farm, and he does a lot of hardscape. And then maybe if you want to, we have some bees back there,
I was
too,
going
which
to
is
mention,
kind
I
of
was like, oh, I see
exciting.
beehives.
Yeah, and they're owned by a guy named Dave who owns Buzz Off Bee Company. So it's kind of like a mutually beneficial partnership where he keeps his bees here, he takes care of the bees, and there's blueberry honey.
All those beehives with the honey in them, you would think would be very tempting for bears.
You would think.
But you do have a bear that is more tempted by your blueberries, I hear. What's that, buddy?
His name is George.
George the bear?
My dad named him
Uh-huh. Why did he name him George, do you know?
because he was eating the blueberries.
He just looks like a George, maybe.
Like a George, I guess. Yeah, we have a lot of wildlife around here. And we have an understanding with George that if he wants to let himself in the netting and eat a few blueberries at night, as long as no customers are around, then we're okay with that. We can't really fight with him. We're gonna, like you were saying about the birds, it's all part of the process here, part of the game. There's a lot of animals, and blueberries are delicious.
Yeah.
Small tithes to nature.
Yes, there is.
George ripped a hole in the netting, and you mended it, and then what?
Oh, yes, and then he ripped it again in the same exact spot, and I think Andrew mended it a second time, and then by the third time, we realized, let's just
do it again.
We'll just have an agreement. Do you guys want to walk in, try some blueberries?
Yeah. Well, first tell us a little bit about your orchard now that we kind of walked down here.
Right, now that we're here. So the mature trees are Asian pears, and those were planted by the former owners. I think that's relatively unique to this area. I don't know if anyone else is growing pears.
I don't know anybody else who's growing
Asian
that type
pears,
of pear.
I should say, not pears. And then we just wanted to try a couple other things. So we've got cherries here. There's some peaches in the middle. We're trying for apples too. The deer really like the apple trees. So pretty small scale. I mean, we're not.
Yeah, the orchard seems to be in the dozens of trees for each kind of thing. But the blueberries especially, and then the raspberry. How many blueberry bushes do you have, do you know?
We have around 800 blueberry bushes and a little less than 800 raspberry bushes.
Wow.
So there's a lot.
What does 800 plus 800 equal, Liam?
1,600.
Oh,
There we go.
All right, your math
Just because
teacher will be
school's over
happy.
doesn't mean you
I
can't
know,
keep your mind sharp.
Oh my goodness.
Blueberries are brain food. They really are, right?
They're delicious. A lot of people, we have quite a mix of customers, which is kind of fun. We have our sort of diehard regulars that come and fill their freezer every year, except last year. And then, you just have people that want to come and have never picked before and just want sort of that New England experience of being on a little farm and picking some blueberries. So
I don't know if we mentioned this, but we're in Southampton, which is, we talk a lot about East Hampton and Northampton, but we often overlook Southampton and West Hampton. So as far as the Hamptons go, I'm glad to be here.
West Hampton is the hardest Hampton to get to. Southampton is a little more accessible.
yeah, we're right off of Route 10, just by the Big Y, if people are familiar with that. It's, got a little civilization nearby, but then you walk down that path in the woods.
Yep.
And you actually have a little haven, if you
Very
will.
magic.
How about
A
that?
Birdhaven in Southampton, where we are right now with Emily.
Yes.
So your blueberries are all netted, but the raspberries aren't. Is that just because they're new? Are you going to be netting them in the future?
It's a good question. I mean, the raspberries are definitely a new venture for us. Maybe we will.
Maybe the birds just aren't that into raspberries.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what we thought, but they are definitely more interested in the blueberries. I mean, it's definitely not the same traffic we're noticing, but we'll see. So far, it's been okay. I mean, you can just see now there aren't any birds around there, but there's a little bit more. I don't know, maybe it's because this hawk or whatever is swooping overhead right now. I can see the shadow of it, but.
Oh yeah. So does having a hawk nearby help with blueberry preservation?
I think so. I mean, we have a pair that live out back and that we see the kids have named them.
What are the hawks' names?
One is Ren, and the other we haven't quite named yet.
Well, it's Kylo Ren.
Hawk Tua.
You know, it's has to be a Star Wars tribute from these guys. So.
I love it.
Yeah. Right? You guys want to get a little pint container and pick a couple blueberries?
Booyah!
All right, let's.
I mean, blueyah.
Oh, you blew me away with
I'm gonna.
Thank you. So this is what looks like a cute, relatively modern constructed farm store. The old farm, you were telling me you had to go to the farmer's house to come.
Yes, walk over their porch, and the store was part of their home.
Yeah.
So.
So you're like in their kitchen with them trying to pay for your
I
blueberries.
mean, we love our customers, but we thought maybe a different experience for people might be better. So yeah, this is just our little farm store shack that we put together, and we sell just a couple of things: homemade jams and sauces made out of Asian pears, and honey products.
Frozen berries.
And we sell frozen berries.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
How well do the so high bush blueberries are the kind of big blueberries that you pick, but then there's low bush that you rake. How well do the high bush freeze?
Oh, I think they freeze pretty well. I mean, I think people have different strategies for freezing blueberries, and
Like on a tray, separated,
Yes.
and then coalesced afterwards?
yes, and some people just throw them in a bag and put them in the freezer, and they really actually do really well. Just depends on what you're using them for. It's a hot commodity right now.
Right. And then after a hot day of picking blueberries out here at Birdhaven, you could have a Crooked Stick Pop, another local business that's been at every festival we've been at over the last couple weekends.
There's a lot of sheltering in place.
In the festivals over the last 2 weekends.
Yes, the last 2 weekends, I know. Last weekend was funny because Saturday was chilly. Lovely day for picking, and we didn't sell a single popsicle or whatever. And then Sunday it was so hot that every single person that came in was just like water, popsicles, anything. Got it all. Melting out there.
Let's
anyway,
pick.
We can head out to the field.
Head out to the field to just pick some blueberries, have fun.
You want to lead us, Liam?
Sure.
He's getting on the bike to do this, though. He's really going to run an advanced team. Ooh, look at that beautiful bird.
Oh, that's a scarlet tanager.
A scarlet tanager!
Yes. I think I saw her in Peru.
It's here almost
That
every day.
tanager got right in.
This is one of our rows. We're just wandering through. You can see all the berries, and there's a lot of unripe still, which is great because there's a lot to come. So.
And we're really at just the very beginning of the season, kind of, right?
Oh yeah, we typically open around 4th of July. We opened a little early this year because of that hot weather. That ripened up all the berries pretty quick, so we got to be open, which was pretty fun. So yeah, wherever you guys want to
All right.
taste spot.
Looks pretty blue right here.
This is pretty blue.
That it does.
Yeah.
How many varieties do you have growing in here? I know you said that you've got them planted to kind of roll out as the summer goes on.
Yeah, I think there's probably about 7 or 8 different varieties out here. These are our early blues right here, and I'll take you over in a minute a couple rows to our Patriots. Those are huge ones. They look like grapes almost. And then, there's some other varieties as the season unfolds. So try some blueberries.
What do you think your loss is for people who come and pick blueberries for what they eat while picking versus what goes in that they're going to pay for?
You know, it's funny. Some people are like, just weigh my kid, please.
As I look down at my container and see that it's empty,
And you're like, blueberries.
and think back over the last 30 seconds, I think I just ate about 20.
I watched you, Jacob, and you really were who I was calling out by making that statement.
It was nice of you to give yourself up.
I'll out myself as
Yeah.
well. So I love berry picking because as a child, it always just felt like an easier way to mine for little gems. They're like little blue gems, just
They are
sitting on the
little
bush for you to
gems.
come get.
It's funny, a lot of our customers sort of have that similar response that you just did, in my childhood I remember doing this, or I have one or two customers who have the same containers that they picked in when they were kid. I know, and they bring these little tin buckets,
That's
legit
adorable.
blueberry for sale, they
Plink,
still have
plank,
them.
plunk.
Yeah. For obviously we live here, this is a little slice of heaven for us, but we try to have that same experience for our customers so that it feels like you walk through the woods and some people don't even know this is back here. We're just hoping the community has that same kind of feeling and experience when they come here, that it just feels like a special place.
Birdhaven is not just a haven for birds.
It's a meditative practice of blueberry extraction.
It actually is.
Isn't that the truth?
I'm convinced that Blueberries for Sal is a horror story for children. That child gets separated from its mom, and then a mother bear follows it around a blueberry field. That's a horror story.
Were you scared of
you
that
should,
story?
You should read that story with like a spooky blink, blank, plunk.
She loses her mommy and she finds the mama bear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the crows come, and that's the part that always gets me.
Yeah, right?
The crows have eyes, and you better not look them in.
Try reading it to your children with that context.
Yeah,
Makes it that much more fun.
There's actually a lot of those things, and like things that I remember from my childhood where I'm like, oh my God, I'm not sharing this with my kids. This is horrific. I'm also an elementary school teacher, so there's a lot of things. Times have changed. So, you guys want to check out a different variety? Or?
Sure.
All right, let's bushwhack.
Do you have customers that will like seek out a certain variety? They're like, oh, I love the Patriots because they're huge.
Will they ever win another World Series?
Right?
Doubt
I
it.
know. Not sports. Not sure how to answer that one.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
I
Those
tried to mix as many different things
Yeah,
in there as I
those
could.
metaphors-
Blueberries, wrong sports.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the later season ones that there's always a couple people that just are diehard Rubel fans. Some people don't even realize there's more than one variety of blueberries.
Yeah.
So
I thought there was the blue kind. Oh yeah, these ones definitely look bigger. Figures they call it the bigger kind the Patriot. It just seems so USA. Happy 4th of July, everybody. It's time for the Patriot Blueberry.
yeah, so these are a little different looking, different tasting.
I got
Oh,
more
yeah.
of a tang on
I
this one,
like
but maybe
these.
because
I
it was
like
a little
that.
underripe.
No, they're a little
they're a little
tangier.
Yeah, they are a little tangier.
I like these, personally. So it sort of depends on what. Some people like the tang, some people like the real sweet. So
Better for baking.
better for bacon.
These are the ones I want to drop in my pancakes.
Yeah.
Liam, you're going to town eating these.
This is breakfast.
You're turning violet, Violet.
Violet, you're turning violet, Violet.
Yeah, I did not really have any breakfast, so.
This is
It's
a
good-
good breakfast.
Breakfast of champions.
I know.
These Patriots, they're like the GOAT. They're the Tom Brady of,
Oh, there he is again.
I always have trouble like picking through a patch because I look over and the bushes are bluer 5 feet away.
the blueberries are always bluer on the other side of the bush.
You guys want to just check our raspberries?
Yeah, let's go check the raspberries.
Yay, raspberries!
Yay, raspberries.
Here we are in the raspberry fields forever. So we have 9 different varieties that we planted last year that luckily we planted after the frost. So they've done we're surprised at how well they've done.
Red and black, it looks
Red
like.
and black. So this is
Nice.
this is a row of black raspberries.
I love black raspberries.
I love black
Here, I'll put some
raspberries.
here.
And black raspberries are different than blackberries. I think a lot of people confuse them for
They
some
do.
reason.
Yeah. I much prefer them, to be honest.
Me too.
But,
And they're not as invasive like blackberries.
yes, I know.
There's some delicious looking red raspberries over here.
Red ones.
Take that one.
Yeah.
All these different colored jewels.
You guys want to see one little special treat before we
Yeah.
leave? We another nod to Birdhaven.
Mother?
Another little Birdhaven nod is that sometimes or frequently birds will build their nests in some of the bushes. So we've got you can't stop picking blueberries.
I told you not to spoil it.
Oh, I spoiled it, guys. So sometimes we always at least have one little set of babies growing in the blueberries, but this year some customers noticed.
Spoiling it!
Oh my gosh, a nest,
Stop
which we'll show you. And then, okay, I'm sorry, Monty, I'm not going to tell you what we're about.
I've
to look
erased
at.
my brain about what it is we're about to experience.
Good, you better.
Liam, is this it?
Maybe I'll pick some raspberries right over here.
Oh wait, there's caution tape. All right, be gentle, buddy.
And what are we
still
being
there?
cautious about?
Huh, they're gone.
Oh, they're gone.
There's a nest in there, but the birds are gone.
Where'd they
Well, that's
go?
good actually.
They've gone up to bird heaven here in Birdhaven.
No, they grew up enough to fledge and leave the nest. That's a good thing. That's a good place to make your home, right?
Totally. You
Have
got-
some snacks without even leaving the nest.
Yeah.
That sounds
You
good
got
to me.
shade?
Yeah, you got shade. You got everything you need.
It is fun to pick blueberries on the 4th of July.
It's true.
To me, it feels like when I think about blueberries, I think about the 4th of July.
Well, that's why we like to stay open too. It's just like there's a lot of people that, are with family that day or have the day off and just want to come do a fun activity in the morning. And we'll be here 8 to 4. Awesome. So yeah, you can find us here at 59 Gun Road in Southampton, or online. We're at birdhaven.net. We're on Instagram.
.net. I see what you did there.
You like that?
Yeah.
I'm just going to pretend like that was purposeful and .com wasn't already taken.
Up next, Mike Dobbs, who's been covering the news in Western Mass for decades. He's got a new memoir out called What They Didn't Teach You in Journalism School, the memoir of an Ink Stained Wretch.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
NEPM's podcasts are funded by Armbrook Village Senior Living in Westfield, with support services designed to help seniors age in place, including a Compass Memory Support Neighborhood. More at armbrookvillage.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. We welcome to the show G. Michael Dobbs, longtime Western Mass reporter and author with a new book, What They Didn't Teach You in Journalism School, the memoir of an ink-stained wretch.
After spending most of a 70-year-long life working in mass communications, Mike Dobbs writes about what he's learned as a newspaper reporter and editor, magazine publisher, radio talk show host, and local TV news host. The book is part biography and part instructional guide to being a reporter.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413, Mike Dobbs.
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
We were joking earlier in the show how we've had a plethora of authors on this week, and it felt like we were back in school having to read their 300-plus page books, which were great and fun to read. Your book has an interesting conceit. Can you tell us how your book, your memoir, is structured and why?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you and thank you for actually reading authors' books before you do an interview.
Sometimes we skim, but we do try to read the books.
Yes. Well,
as long as we get them in time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, of course. Well, this book came about because of a challenge. I'm good friends with a gentleman named Joe Citro, who is known as the Bard of the Bazaar in Vermont. Joe has had a lengthy writing career, not only as a horror novelist, but also perhaps more prominently as a guy who has collected New England stories. Hauntings, Bigfoot, the Bennington Triangle, inexplicable stuff. And it's astonishing how much of New England history is inexplicable, frankly. Mm-hmm. He had been challenged by a writer friend of his to do a book that would be 100 chapters. Each chapter is 100 words. And he did his book called Loose Change about growing up in Vermont. And he said to me, now I challenge you. So not having a nickname as prestigious as the Bard of the Bazaar, I'm just an old journalist. I thought, well, I've got to make this something more than just talking about myself. I got to talk about what I've learned. And maybe, just maybe, someone who is entering mass communications might read it and have a little step up on some of the stuff that they don't tell you about in journalism school.
But it's nice to have them in small and very digestible, like uber digestible bites, the knowledge that you've accumulated over the years. And I'm upset that he did not tell you what 100-word stories are, what the term for 100-word stories are.
What is that term?
Drabbles.
Oh, I had no
wow,
idea.
I didn't know that either.
I did not know.
It feels like haikus each chapter. Or
yes.
Very poetic in the way you're having to structure it using that 100 words only.
Well, after a while, I got a system which was adding a couple more adjectives. And then when I did the word count, I thought, I can take that adjective out and it's still fine. But yes, and Joe was very precise in his instructions. It had to be 100 words, not 99, not 101, 100 words. So it was a lot of fun, actually. It was fun to write because of that challenge.
Some of the things that you talk about are growing up as part of being a military family and moving around all different places, including 2 years in Okinawa, which is very cool. But also around here in Western Massachusetts. And what I gathered from your book, Mike, is that you love Springfield and are happy to be claimed by Springfield. You also love Hadley, but you kind of hate Granby. Is that true?
No, don't blow your funding from your Granby listeners, okay?
It's more that you had a bit of a much harder time there than in the other two towns.
So when your folks are in the military, my dad was in the Air Force, you get used to moving around, and you also get used to accepting people and people accepting you. That The only place that didn't happen was in Granby. and my folks lived there from 1967 to about 1987, so about 20 years. My dad taught at the high school after he retired from the Air Force. He was a member of the school committee, well known in town. But it was not the easiest place to be a newcomer, let's just say that, as opposed to Springfield, which is a city of newcomers. You know, everybody lives in Springfield. Name the demographic group, the religion, the ethnicity, everything. Everyone lives here. And so it's a lot easier in a town like Springfield.
I like that, learning that one of your entry points into journalism was through nerddom and fandom.
I love
it. With animation and with comics. I assume that wasn't something that you were expecting, but were you expecting it to last longer than it did, your magazines on fandom?
No, I had no expectations. I was, I was a movie crazy kid in junior high school. I wanted to watch everything. And then at some point in high school, I realized that there were fanzines. There were people who were printing their own magazines about film. And in my particular case, it would have been horror, science fiction, fantasy. And it blew my little mind because you really think when you're growing up that adults do magazines, and magazines are something that come out of New York City and are on the newsstand. And it really blew me away that if you could afford printing something, and you could afford a magazine. And so I was very fortunate. My dad had a Spirit duplicator in the spare bedroom because he got tired of waiting for it at the high school to print out tests. So I had a printing press at my house.
That's amazing.
And so I did the fanzine, and that really awakened a love of writing and putting stuff together for people. That really opened the door for me. It really did.
We're speaking with G. Michael Dobbs, longtime reporter in Western Mass, about his new book, What They Didn't Teach You in Journalism School, the memoir of an Ink Stained Wretch. 100 chapters, 100 words each. A couple of these chapters touch on your love of and work with animation and being associated with an animation magazine. Talk about, I know this is a separate book that you have, but about the animation boom of the 90s that enraptured you, that you wrote about.
Well, a friend of mine and I'd been writing for a magazine called Animato, and the magazine was dead. And this buddy says, well, why don't we buy it? So we were able to acquire it by retiring its printing debt at a local printer. And then we started doing this Animation Fans magazine, and it happened during the 90s when there was so much animation going on. Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and it was a boom time. Also, animation art was very, very popular, so there was an ad base. So there was a readership base and an ad base. And I've loved cartoons ever since I was a little kid living at 104 Navajo Road here in Springfield and watching Popeye every day.
You have a Popeye anchor tattoo that you just got.
Yes, I do. I wanted to get this when I turned 50, and my mother had a fit. And I don't know about you two, but my mom still held a certain amount of sway with me. She has passed, and for my 70th birthday, decided to get the tattoo. Yes, I got Popeye's anchor there. But I loved the Fleischer cartoons. I loved the Betty Boops. I loved the Popeyes. And while I was at UMass, I had the hubris of youth to think I could write a book about it. And as it turned out, it took a long time to get the books out, but they came out at the right time. And so, yes, I love animation. It's the most pure cinematic art form, period, because you can actually do it by yourself, and that's difficult to say with most movies.
It's wonderful to read about because I think that's the point where at least my family definitely got really into animation. Like you have interviews with the voice actors from like Animaniacs and like the Warner Brothers revival and so many more. It's super, super cool. When we get into some of the more direct like techniques and tricks things, you have 4 straight chapters on editors.
and what
Yes.
they should and shouldn't do. So I think a lot of people in our news department are in the other room listening right now. They're waiting with bated breath for your advice there, Mike Dobbs.
First, don't work for an alcoholic.
Okay. Okay, guys, you're all fired.
That's really important. There's different kinds of editors, and hopefully I was a decent editor the 22 years I was at the Reminder, and 20 of those as the executive editor. In terms of, an editor should be your guide, should be setting a reporter up with context and necessary information. That doesn't always happen. A lot of times you get sent out, and nobody at the UMass Journalism Department would warn any of us that you just might be thrown into that deep end of a pool for a story. So yes, there can be good editors and not so good editors.
Do you feel hopeful for the future of journalism in the few seconds that we have left? Sum up your entire career and profession.
Well, thank you, Monty. Do I feel hopeful? Some days I do. There's a lot of very good journalism that's happening online. There's some very good journalism that's happening in unlikely places, and I'm not going to grease you, but I'm going to grease you guys. What NEPM is doing for its radio involvement is spectacular. You guys are actually producing a lot of really good local programming and local journalism, and that's great because in other quarters like newspapers, we're struggling. So, yes, I do have hope most days.
We did not ask him to say that specifically.
But we'll give you
about us.
$20 later.
Thank you so much.
Mike
I'm
Dobbs.
retired. I need it.
The book doesn't even cost $20. It's 100 chapters, 100 words each. What they didn't teach you in journalism school. The Memoir of an Ink Stained Wretch. Thank you so much, Mike Dobbs.
Thank you.
We're going to revisit Wilco on the 4th of July and the 5th of July in solid sound.
Yeah, should be a fun time. Have a good holiday, everybody.